Let's see if this one sticks. That was so weird. So, all right, I think we're back live. I hope we're back live. Let's see if this works. So this is funny. So I was literally, I don't know if this even popped up, but I was in the middle of complaining about the internet access with my other computer and the fact that the button or whatever, I thought I hit a button or something, had to be online with some dude to tell me how to make it work. And the internet crashes on the feed. So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, I don't even know what I was talking about before that. I was doing my typical ramblings on. But anyway, I know I was talking about, a lot about Stormy on the front end of this. And, for anybody that jumps back in the middle of this, there was a question earlier on about throwing a different pulley on my car. And I got to say, I don't know that I'm a player with a bigger power number, mainly because I can't really use the power that the car is making now. And this has been my big, like, it's a bit of a beef that I have with the performance car industry, the performance car landscape that we're all living in. And what I had said earlier is that, we've normalized 13-second pickup trucks. The thing about that, though, is that we've also made it more of a, Gary saying, second time's a charm. Chuck saying, what happened? So here's what happened. I have no idea. I was just yammering on, I guess, because I'm tethered into this computer, and I guess the tether, that internet connection just kind of flaked out. So round two. But the thing is that what I was getting at is that we've the internet would have you think that an 11-second car or a 12-second car isn't fast. And what I've done, one of the things that has really kind of been pushing me to keep really driving this narrative with Stormy is because Stormy's a pickup truck, Stormy's a 5.7, and Stormy has 321 gears, not a four-wheel drive. And so it's kind of like an everyman's pickup truck that's capable of running numbers that the muscle cars back in the 60s and 70s were running. It took something relatively special to crack a 13 in any condition for those cars back then. And we're even talking about those cars on a drag slick. So, we talk about what is and what isn't fun. We talk about what is and what isn't fast. But the reality is that, I'm able to have something that is fast by the standard that began this whole muscle car craze. And it is kind of cool to be able to say that. And I get it, 12s are 12s and 11s are 11s. But on the street, usable power, does it really matter all that much? I'd like to argue not as much as you might think. And as big of a fan as I am of the 392 and the Mustangs and the Hellcats and all of that are floating around out there, man, the reality is that there's a lot of guys having a lot of fun with the trucks and with the 5.7s that, you never really hear about. The roadies get action too, guys. And I'm telling you, it's definitely something to remember, especially when you see the difference in person between a 13-second car and a mid 12-second car. On the street, it ain't much different. At the drag strip, it's something that you can see at the back half of the track, but even through the 8th, not so much. And so again, I'm having so much fun with that truck because I get to have my cake and kind of eat it too, in a way. James saying, hey, B, love the live streams. Thank you. For a 2021 Charger 5.7, if I'm going to go full bolt-on route, Texas Speed Stage 2 cam, Cook's headers and whatnot. Do you recommend a 6.4 intake manifold swap or a ported 6.1? Yes, and kind of not really. So you're going to go headers. You're going to do the right thing. You're going to have the right springs, by the way. We're talking valve springs, the right push rods, 080s. And you're going to have a fresh set of lifters just because it's kind of the right thing to do. Now you're asking, do I recommend a 6.4 intake or a ported 6.1? Here's the thing. The 6.4 intake works great, provided you can make it work as a 6.4 intake. In other words, you've got to be able to actuate that short runner valve. I know that Dr. Diff had worked with HP tuners in terms of being able to get being able to repin the 5.7 computer to work with the 6.4 manifold. Most other guys, I think Z Automotive had something that worked with that. I don't know if they still make it or not. The other way you can do it is with a window switch, but you have to make the 6.4 intake manifold switch back and forth, or it's not really worth doing. A ported 6.1, probably a good way to go. I would say extrude hone to make it really good. But again, you start to say, well, which is really better? The fact of the matter is the stock 5.7, I hate to tell you this, but it's about as good as a 6.1. There's not a lot that separates those two manifolds, not in the real world anyway. And you could probably get away with a cleaned up stock manifold, provided it even needed to be cleaned up. And it'll work just fine with a stage 2 cam. The reason why I say that is because you have a lot more overlap. It's a tighter lobe separation angle. It means it takes some of the load off of the intake runner. They're just not as active. Your port velocity won't be as high. And so you can get away with the 5.7 intake. If it were my car, probably would go with the stock intake now. If it were my car, I would obviously it's going to be all pulled apart. I would take a look at the stock intake. If it's got a lot of casting flash, I'd probably just clean up whatever casting flash is in the runner itself. I wouldn't try to do anything else with it and let her rip. That's what I would definitely do. James saying, also, given the 2021 5.7 Chargers have the same exhaust catback as the Hellcats, is it necessary to upgrade the catback? It doesn't have the same exhaust as the Hellcat. The Hellcat has the oh wait, you got a Charger. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, they're all gonna be basically the straight flow through style exhaust. Do not waste your money on a catback. It just ain't worth it. Oh, Dan, didn't know if you saw it, but Car and Driver just tested a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Wagoneer long wheelbase with a high output. Hurricane 0 to 60 was 4.7. That's screaming. Quarter was a 1350 at 103, all while weighing 6430. The reality is that I want to see that engine in a truck, for one, and two, I've got my reserve. I mean, that's impressive. No question about it. 1350 at a $103 is screaming fast. My only concern with that engine is they're running so much boost. It's 500 horsepower, 6 pounds of boost. And to put that in perspective, guys get skittish with the EcoBoost at 22, which is what the 400 horse is. So the regular 3.5 liter EcoBoost is 15. Chuck's saying the 6.4 is not the same as a 5.7, 3 versus 2.5. Actually, they switched it. Well, 275 is what the Hellcat and the 6.4s have. The later cars, the very recent cars, all have in essence the same catback. So, but there's not a lot of difference between the two. Like I say, I just wouldn't mess with it. I would not spend the money on a different catback. They're just too good from the factory. Here's the thing. we never saw a difference on the dyno going from one to the next to the next to the next. You could argue that, and I don't know, at some power level there could be but it's a 275 pipe, and so I just don't see it. I just don't see it helping too much. But yeah, the biggest thing you're going to be doing is pulling that log manifold out of there. That's going to do more to help you than anything else. And then just get the metal substrate cats. Don't get the ceramic, get the metal substrate, and you're in good shape. Dan saying, I agree, it's a lot of boost on the Hurricane. Do you want to see what it could do in a Ram 1500? It would be a monster in a Ram 1500. And I've been saying that, guys, for a long time. Look, let's kind of hop back into the Wayback Machine. I've been saying, look, when Ram is released with the 3-liter 6-cylinder, whichever one that it is, I would potentially be a player at that point. The problem that I have is, again, the amount of boost that they're running in that engine to cover those kind of numbers is a little bit off-putting to me. And look, you've already had the Toyota running into problems with wastegate issues. The EcoBoost, at least with the 3.5, has had its history of problems, although I think a lot of those have been solved. But what was that? What was the problem they were running into? They kind of fixed the timing chain issue now that they're running 2 chains as opposed to 1. And it was cam phasers. So yeah, those things are still running. That's just a weird design fluke, but cam phasers failing at about 60,000 miles, which is a problem. Keep also in mind that you have to maintain an engine like that, like you would maintain a race car. Let me also put something else into perspective for you guys. Y'all remember that little video I put together where I was comparing horsepower per boost? And I was saying, look, the 2.7 Ford, pretty good. The 3.5-liter Ford, really good. The Hurricane's not so much, because you had to run so much boost to get to those advertised numbers. And that 2.4 that Chevrolet was making was not all that impressive either from that point of view. But you know what doesn't have to have a lot of boost to make a lot of horsepower? The Hellcat platform. The Hellcat only makes 11 pounds of boost, and that's if it's really in good air. Typically you're seeing 10 to 10.5 in kind of lousy air, and it's making 700 horsepower plus. Matter of fact, you can make a case where it's a safer combination just in terms of cylinder pressure and everything else. It's kind of safer than those real high-strung 6-cylinders. Again, you have to maintain that 6-cylinder like it is a race car at those power levels, because they are making race car specific output power levels. What's 500 divided by 3? These are numbers, 500 horsepower, in other words, divided by 3 liters. These are horsepower numbers that would kind of scare you. And that's one of the, it's just one of the things that kind of puts me off a little bit. Don't believe me, I'm a big believer in the technology. I know that it's there. I know how good it can be. But I also understand that those numbers are kind of going to be pumped up a little bit by the fact that the manufacturer is trying to get as much torque out of this thing as they possibly can. They're throwing the kitchen sink at these things. And one question that I have, I don't know if it is or not, is that Grand Wagoneer, is it just internal combustion or is it hybrid? That's a crazy fast time for something that weighs 6,400 pounds that's only making 500 horsepower. So a lot to unpack with that. But again, I've said time and time again, I'm a huge fan of inline 6s. Man, I've always liked inline 6s. Pair one up with a turbo, and I like it even that much more. I'm just worried that it's 3 liters. I mean, at 3 liters, it's just the other side of what the 2.7 is for the Ford. It's on the wrong side of 3.5 liters, by the way. And it's just kind of a weird displacement for me for a truck like that. I mean, it's at 400 horsepower for the standard output, but it's less torque than the 3.5 liters. And you get the sense that Ram is going to be, I mean, really playing last chair on the power perspective when you start to look at these boosted offerings. And I mean, look, I'd say it, but this is the kind of world that we're living in. These hybridized boosted combinations are stupid fast. There's a lot of stupid things that can go wrong with those. Not necessarily complicated, but there's a lot more moving parts, so to speak. So anyway, Sovereign saying like, share, subscribe. Absolutely. Oh, Sovereign posted up the link to the video that I'm talking about, those specific horsepower outputs, the specific power per boost. If you haven't seen that one, what I'm doing in that video is I'm explaining how the Hurricanes stack up against the other offerings that are out there. But one of the things that I didn't have to compare was durability and longevity. I mean, again, it's something that concerns me a little bit. And again, these manufacturers fix their problems. It's not like these things go out into the world, they've got problems and they're never course corrected. It never really works out like that. But again, it's just, having the conversation and talking about the realities of 22 and 26 pounds of boost. That's it. They're legit concerns, especially when you're saying that these things have to run on, well, I mean, if you put that engine in a Ram, people are going to put base fuel in it, 87 octane. Well, I mean, is there going to be an 87 octane knock limited number, and then you can just kind of ramp that up and it makes 400 at premium? It's not a good look when the other guys are doing their work on a lower fuel. But again, we're not there yet. We don't have that offer to compare, but when we do, I'm looking forward to comparing them. Chuck saying it was a nice day in Vermont. Very nice. I went side by side with a BMW 340. I and a Supra. My friends both challenged me. My Challenger Scat fell behind out of the hole, but my 6.4 beat them both. Absolutely, quarter mile. See, that's the thing. A lot of folks forget you cannot sleep on the 6.4. It's kind of funny, but it's true. The 6.4 is just so fun and can hold its own against everything but the absolute obnoxious coyote on the highway. And the weird thing about all of this is that if you've ever driven one of the new Mustangs, one of the weird things, and this was true for the truck too, and this is something that just freaking kind of broke my heart a little bit about the Ford, because as y'all know, I've got a Ford background, and I mean, it was going to be a Ford truck all the way right up until the 11th hour of this deal. But the problem, I didn't want to talk. So the problem that I have with the Ford, in a lot of ways, I actually like the Ford more than the Dodge Ram. Anyway, but dude, the truck, from just being punchy at low RPMs, it wasn't there. If I were buying that truck to build a hot rod out of it, then I would have bought the Ford and probably wouldn't have considered the Ram, because it was just like I would have been looking at a goal of making the thing run high 11s or mid 12s or whatever the number would be. That would, in essence, be more or less irrelevant, because in a sea of 12-second anythings and everythings, it just doesn't really pay to have something that is only fast when you are pushing your foot through the floor. It's only entertaining, I should say. and fast when you're really hammering on the thing. And that's really where the turnoff for me and the Ford came, was that, fellas, when you are in it to win it, that Ford is a ripper. But if you're not, it just didn't have that lump of torque that the Ram had. And that's one of the things I liked about it. Then you put that together and you go, well, the Ram does ride a lot better. And then your head goes completely away from performance and it goes to somewhere else. And that's, again, okay, could I really tell the difference between the two, the way that they ran? Well, the weird thing is that I kind of couldn't. The Ford, the thing shifts at almost 7,000 RPM, guys. And that part of it was weird enough for me as it was, but up to, and I'm not kidding when I say this, up to about the point where the Dodge would shift, especially like out of first coming into second gear, the Ram felt stronger. And I was thinking, golly, I mean, and I'm never going to say never. I mean, if Ford keeps making 5 liters and Ram potentially has issues, they do away with a V8, they're sticking with an inline 6, a Ford might be in my future. But the reality is that it would have to be re-geared. And that was the other end of it, is that I couldn't get the gears that I wanted in the truck that I was wanting to get. You can only get 373 gears for the F-150 if you start, picking some high fruit. And it's a freaking truck, bro. If I want to put whatever gears you offer into whatever truck I buy, I should be able to do that. I mean, it ain't like you don't got the gears there, right? So anyway, they were, I don't know what the right term is for it, but they were option flagging 373s for higher option trucks, which is stupid. Which, this is full disclosure, fellas, is the sole reason why I didn't buy the Ford, because I couldn't get the gear that I wanted. And then the dumbass, this is so funny. The guy that I was talking to, and keep in mind, they were playing sales guy roulette, and the last guy that I landed on, I would have been better off if I was having the discussion with a ham sandwich, fellas. Started out with a pretty bright guy. The second guy seemed to be pretty bright too. They weren't there the third time when I went in there with my checkbook. People weren't calling me back. That was another thing, trying to make an appointment to come in. Guys wouldn't call me back. I'm trying to do this stuff after I get off work. I don't have time for this type of thing. And the funny thing is, so the story goes like this, drove all the different trucks, and then went back to Ford, was going to order the Ford, and was just asking the guy, can I have 373 gears installed in this truck when it shows up? And the idea was to get an STX, a gray STX, and with a 5.0 and go from there. And the guy wanted to argue with me and tell me, well, the only way you can get 373 gears is if you get this package. Like, I don't need the extra long wheelbase. The thing's about as long as a small train. Anyway, it's so stupid the way they option their trucks. The other things pissed me the clear blue sky off. But anyway, I said, look, you've got a service department, right? Yes. Okay. You have access to rear ring and pinion gears, right? Yeah. And the guy's like, well, yeah. And I go, well, okay, let's put the two together. I'm not even asking you to pay for it. I'll pay for it, but truck's got to have 373 gears. He goes, yeah, but you can't option those gears. But I was like, dude, you know what? Peace. I'm done. All right. I'm becoming stupider by sitting in this guy's presence. And that was the problem that I had. As awesome as the Ford would have maybe been from a performance standpoint, I knew for a fact the problems were just beginning if I bought a Ford, especially at this dealership, just with some of the other reliability issues that I've heard with Ford, transmission and some other issues notwithstanding. issues with cabs leaking, aluminum parts cracking. See, the problem with having a really nice and light truck when it's all made out of aluminum is that sometimes the aluminum bits fatigue a little bit more quickly than steel does. So in that event, I did not want to have to deal with anything that aluminum would do in terms of fatigue and failure. But that's something you can overlook pretty quickly once you start playing with them. Anyway, getting back to that whole, which one did I prefer? Which one did I like better? Why did I end up going with the Dodge? And why a 321 geared truck? It's because when I drove both trucks, the Dodge rode nicer and it didn't feel altogether different. And now, I mean, the truck's basically performing about as well as you could have expected that 5-liter to perform in terms of just outright numbers and mile per hour. I'm pretty stoked with that. I'm pretty happy with that. So it took a little bit of tickling of the ivories, but we're there. And it's just, the truck runs good. But with that Hurricane, though, we'll see. I don't know. I won't say never on that. It could end up being that is the next best, most durable setup that you could ever hope for. But history doesn't agree with that line of thinking. I can tell you that. Phoenix saying, hey, we're back. Yes. Yeah, we are. Weird kind of a lost internet connectivity there. Ryan saying, sub, y'all smash that like button. Yes. Sovereign saying, dealership dropped the ball. Yeah, they did. And I'll tell you something. Bayshore, Dodge, Jeep, Ram has done a really good job of rectifying a problem that Stellantis roadside created. They've gone way above and beyond, and they went above and beyond, and they treat me like royalty when I go there. And which they do to everybody. I've noticed how they get people in and out of there, the way that just a bit more of a professional air about them. I can tell you that it would have been the same situation with the Ford. Had that been the situation, I can promise you that dealership would probably have ruined the experience. Whereas my Dodge dealership did the exact opposite, did everything they could to make things right quickly. Chuck saying my Super Duty V10 was awesome, but the brakes failed. Damn, the caliper piston seized up. Had to keep taking them apart and applying anti-seize or getting new calipers. Damn, that's crazy. So I was asking, is the Hurricane American or European in design? My understanding, it's American in design. And it is that engine's a clean slate engine. It's got if memory serves me correctly, it does not have integral to the head manifolds for the exhaust side or the intake for that matter. Ryan's asking, any thoughts on modding the old V10 Magnums that came in early gen Dodge trucks? No, it is the same in configuration only. The cylinder heads are not like the Vipers. I know that there were guys that boosted them. I think they ran like a ProCharger style setup on those trucks. That would be about as far as I would honestly try to take one. They're really good in as delivered form for being a truck engine, but that is exactly what they are. It's not like they took a Viper and just made a cast iron version of that. It's not quite the same, which is kind of odd really when you think about it, because it would have been really easy to just put Viper, you would think anyway, to just put Viper heads on that block and create a long runner intake that would work. And you would have a 10-cylinder LS, for lack of a better way of putting it, just with a lot more cubic inches per pot, but never really saw anything come of that. I think a lot of guys bought that truck because of displacement. That engine is a really good truck engine, just basically because it's, just such a big lump of an engine up there. We had that V10 era where Ford and Dodge had their V10s running around. The Triton V10 was actually pretty good too. I don't know if it suffered. I can't drink with a lid on. That was pretty funny. I don't know if the V10 ever suffered from cam phaser issues, though. I can tell you they're kind of punchy, though, in a U-Haul truck. Had one in a U-Haul when I moved back to Texas. But, well, guys, with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. We're 30 minutes into part 2. I think we're like 45 into it before we had the weird situation with the internet. Sovereign saying Racer X just dropped a review on an 04 RT truck. Those were pretty cool. So before I wrap it up, I will say that what a cool time in life was when Ford had the Lightnings and Dodge had the RT, the Viper trucks. The interesting thing is it was always Lightning versus the Viper trucks, and it was just always a fun, the Lightning would get out on the Viper trucks, and the Viper trucks would try to run them down by the end of the quarter mile. It was always kind of a neat race. But anyway, with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Check out the video if you haven't seen it on my thoughts on that specific, horsepower per boost. I think I did a whole chart on that. Working on I might put another oil video together, just kind of talking about the 20 weight oils. I started doing some research into those oils, and there's a bunch of parity with the 20 weights because there's so many vehicles that use it. It's not like the 40 weight variants where you can kind of, pick and choose and all that. I was working on it. We'll see if that even gets any legs. But with that, guys, thanks again. Get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. You're going to send it, don't bend it, keep your shiny side up. And with that, we will catch y'all on the next one. That's a wrap. Adios.